it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, welcome to the Sick Podcast on this Monday, April 17. It is 1 minute past 10 p.m. Welcome everyone who's watching on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live, on Twitter Live, and we are here. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different, and brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi. Brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards, Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. I've been wanting to get this gentleman on the podcast for a while, but he's a busy guy, and there are a few things to iron out, and it looks like we were able to pull it off. He is the former head coach of the Blainville-Boisbriand Armada, the former head coach of the Laval Rocket, and the former head coach of the San Diego Gulls. He's a former NHLer, and today he is part of the Tivia Sport team, and I'm hoping that he can end up becoming a regular contributor to the Sick Podcast tonight. He makes his debut, and I know that he's going to kill it. As a matter of fact, it's going to be sick. Joel Bouchard.
Hey. Ça va bien, mon Tony? Quelle présentation.
You're very welcome. Respect is earned. It's not given. You've earned it, and that's why I show it. You know, Joel, when the Canadian season came to an end, there's a couple of things that went through my mind, and one of them was, well, you know what? For someone like me who does a podcast that is centered around the Montreal Canadiens, I'm going to have to get creative here over the next 2.5 months. When the season ended on Thursday night in that 5-4 loss versus the Boston Bruins, Martin St. Louis said, okay, goodbye to the media. This is it. I'm going to do one more post-game, and it's over. But then the next day, as the players cleared their lockers, I'm sure he had a quick chat with all of them. So now I'm saying, you know what? I want to talk to somebody who's been there before, ideally as a player and ideally as a coach. And I want to talk to somebody, ideally, who probably was within the Canadiens organization once upon a time. And even though this is a different management group, can kind of probably pretty much tell me how it goes down and tell the listeners and the viewers how it goes down. So one of the things I want to do tonight is I kind of want to role play with you. And what I want to do is, you're the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. You're Martin St. Louis for one night, but you can use the Joel Bouchard style. And I will be a different player. I'll walk into your room, and you're going to tell me what you think. I might give you an answer if you want it. I don't know if you ask questions in return. But if you do, I'll give you an answer, the one that comes to the top of my head, and we'll go from there. So let me start with this. These exit meetings, before we get to the players, how long do they last with players? And I would imagine every player is different.
Tony, I'm pretty excited to talk about it. I'll tell you why. Because it's always the same thing. You know, the season end, either if you don't make the playoff, usually coaches have time to prepare a little bit. If you're in the playoff, you don't really have time to prepare because you're preparing for the playoff, and then you're cut in the moment and you lose. And now it becomes like a bit of a, everybody's emotional, everybody's tired. Even Martin was tired at the end of the season. So remember COVID happened, right? I mean, we've just won a big game against, and you don't know where I'm going right now, but I'll explain to you a little bit. So COVID happened. We won a big games against Belleville, which was a top team. We were a young team, sold out at the Place Laval and Scott Millenby come down and said, Joel, I think we're going to shut down. And I'm like, what are you talking? We have like Cleveland coming in this weekend. And the next morning, John Sandwich called me and said, Joel, we're going to keep player off the ice. And now it just triggered from like 10 a.m. to say, hey, it's not going to, you guys not going to skate today too. Send everybody home. We'll call you. So why I'm
Joel, I think if I can, 1 second, you're breaking up a little bit. I think I'm hearing you kind of robotic. I'm just wondering if everyone else is as well, or if it's just me that I'm hearing you robotic. Hold on a second. Maybe Sammy Agnello, you can try and take Joel back to the green room. Joel, talk again for a second.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Yeah, it's just it was a little bit robotic at one point. Yeah, it was a little bit of robotic at one point. But now I think it's better. Yes, okay. Let's keep talking. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, the reason why I tell you this, Tony, is that we couldn't talk to the player. There was no exit meeting. So we all took off, went home, and we just were like staying home and waiting. So I did the exit meeting 2 months after the season when we were shut down. And those were the best exit meeting I've ever had. So the way it goes, it's right after the season, a lot of emotion, not much setback. The COVID year was perfect because we all had time to think about it and reset and refresh. And so from now on, my exit meeting will be a little one at the end of the year and a bigger one later on, a couple of months or something to think. But most of the people, they do it right after the season, and I'll play along with you. But I thought it was something that I've really liked, is to have a bit of the perspective with a player, when the emotion is down and everything, and to talk. So when I did it during COVID, I spent like 30 to 40 minutes with a player. And you were asking how long it goes. Well, in that format that Martin did, it all depends. It could be pretty quick. It could be, it's a long day. You get tired as a coach. So I don't think those are the best meeting. But as a coach, Tony, you always have 3 or 4 that you don't want to miss. That 2, 3 or 4 guys that, you're like, what, I'm going to bear down on this guy, or I'm going to really make sure we understand each other. For some others, you kind of just, if like a guy is free agent or he's not going to be coming back, and you still want to be nice and talk. But so that's why there's a bunch of different vibe when those meetings comes around at the end. Mm-hmm. And it all depends how the season went. And, I've had it with the Armada where guys were crushed. We just lost in the final. And it's just like guys were emotionally drained. So it's a different, obviously, kind of meeting. But I just wanted to put a little bit of information out there to people to say that it's all kind of different. But we'll do the Habs for sure.
Okay, so let's just say you were coaching the Montreal Canadiens. The season comes to an end April 12, 13, whatever it is. The next day, you talk to a couple of players, but in your world, you'd probably make a couple of weeks, maybe even up to a month go by, and then talk to a couple of other players? Is that what you're saying?
No, I would talk to all the players, but I would probably ask question or have them talk and say, let's revisit in a month or in a couple of months. You know what I mean? Think about it instead of being more of a, sometimes you can say stuff to player. I think it's good that they sink it back in. You know what I mean? They just gotta, kind of plant the seed a little bit. And hey, think about it. We'll talk. And so the way I do it is always touch back after a month or about the conversation.
So let's say these exit meetings that Martin had on Friday. How would they go down in terms of order? Is there any kind of strategy whatsoever as to who he wants to get to first and who he wants to get to last?
It could be all different, but usually a trainer would put hours down, meaning 10 o'clock, 10:15, 10:30, a 15 minutes or a 10 minutes window. And then player would have to come get their gears and have an exit medical. And so there'd be a bunch of other things, meaning the coach. But usually veteran would be, there's a bit of pick and order, right? Veteran will go put the time they want. and then
Yeah.
whatever is left is our rookies, or it all depends if somebody has to leave for a flight or something to go to the World Championship, or so it could be different. But usually the veteran kind of have, I could see Shea Weber a couple of years back being the first one to write, I'll be there at 9:00, and then everybody else kind of waiting until Shea's done, and then other veteran and Munson will put his name. So usually that's how the order goes, and the coach, sometimes you get the list, sometimes you just, there's a knock on the door. Assistant coach get involved a lot with getting players and bringing them in.
Okay, so let's start with a veteran here. We'll do it this way, and we'll go by position. This way it's easy for everyone watching via YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live. First one who knocks on your door, I walk in, I'm Jake Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
First, always I would say, hey, Jake, how you doing? How's it?
Doing good, Coach. How you doing?
Yeah, I would already start because, you've been banged up a bit this year. And I've been busy coaching the team and doing so. So how do you feel like the injury came about? And talk to me about the injury. I want to see where you're at, where your head's at.
Yeah, it's just one of those injuries that I got over the course of the year, Coach. And you know what? I really wanted to help the team win. I tried to play through it. Unfortunately, I aggravated the injury. I've noticed as I'm getting later on in years in my career that I'm not recouping normally as fast as I would have. But you know what? I'm very disappointed with the way the season went. I expect more from myself. I will get myself ready for next year, and I want to bounce back next year, and I want to help lead this team into the playoffs next year, Coach.
And I think that's where, as a coach, and I just got to break out, is that you kind of have to tell the player that there's a lot of emotion sometimes when you don't have the season you want and stuff, and you got to validate the attitude. And I would say to Jay, hey, listen, we know you're professional. That's why we signed you. We know you care. You've been great to Monty. He's been having a great season, and you're part of this. I know it's unfortunate. As athletes, we always, try to perform the best we can, but you've been banged up a little bit. And at times, we got to be better in front of you. So it's not only one thing. I wouldn't want you to bang your head on the wall because I know you're a good guy. I know you're a hard worker. But I respect that you expect more from yourself also. And that's why we signed you. That's why we like you. First thing first, just get that injury out of the way. Make sure you have all the resources you can to get back next summer, the next training camp, and get in shape this summer. And Eric is there, the goalie coach. I mean, you guys have a great relationship. I mean, obviously I leave goalie alone most of the year, but we know it's never a lack of caring. We know it's never a lack of wanting. I think we all can get better, and I'm glad your assessment of the situation and your maturity show us that you're a guy that we like having around. And obviously, Tony, this is like, I know Jake Allen from the junior days, and I know how much the Habs likes him, and doesn't need much. They don't need to tell us. Like, this is a character that we know that it's a professional, and they've re-signed him for 2 years. If he was a bit of a schmuck, they would have never done that, right? So
yeah, of course.
I'm extending a little bit of the thing that I think I know, but I don't really know. But I'm pretty sure that I'm close to where Martin and the staff or what the organization think of Jake Allen, because it's pretty transparent that he's been a good soldier and a good help to Monty and Eric Raymond and the organization in what's asked of him. It's just been injured,
All right, so now the next guy coming in is going to be Samuel Montembeault, a guy that the coach said at the midway point of the season, Jake Allen is my number one. It wasn't Montembeault. And that seemed to light a fire under Samuel Montembeault, who spent the second half of the season really taking his game to another level. So I knock on the door. I'm Samuel Montembeault, and I walk in.
Hey, Sam, have a seat.
Thanks, Coach.
How you feeling? Good?
I'm feeling good, Coach. I mean, I would have loved to make the playoffs. I mean, losing sucks, but, I had a season this year that I think is encouraging, and I look forward to taking it to another level next season, Coach.
Yeah. What do you think was the big difference for you this year versus maybe last year or the past year?
Came to camp ready, came to camp with more experience. I knew I was going to have to be at my best And Jake provides really, really good competition. And I'm at a point in my career where I really want to be number one, coach. And I was ready every night.
Okay, well, you did well. What are you going to do? What's your plan? What's next for you?
Well, I talked to Eric, the goalie coach, and he told me certain things that I have to work on. And for me, there's no rest, coach. The work starts tomorrow.
And unless I've misheard, you're going to go to the World Championship?
I am, and I'm looking forward. It's for me, the season ended too early, very unfortunately, here in the second week of April. I want to keep playing. I think, the more pucks I stop, the more action I see, the better it's going to be for me. But I have a question for you, Coach, if you don't mind. Based on what you saw from me, are there areas of my game that you think I really need to improve? And if so, what are they? What do you see?
Well, this is where I don't know if Martin is going to say something about it, relate to his goalie coach. Personally, I would say, as I always say to especially goalies, is that, consistency, work ethic, and still improve on every little detail. I do think that Monty has improved a lot, but I wouldn't go too far in some technical, especially because now I don't know what they've talked about, but I would doubt that Monty would ask that question. I think that, he would probably not go that route. I think rarely guys would ask stuff like that, especially goalies, to a head coach because they have their goalie coach. But if he did,
Joel, would a defenseman ask you,
Yeah.
knowing that you're a former NHL defenseman?
Yeah, forward and D-men could ask, but by that time in the season, they know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if he sits in front of me and says, "What do you think I need to improve?" I'm going like, I didn't do my job because we've worked on the stuff that's been kind of slowing him down in his progression or slowing him down in his growth. So I mean,
Is it possible he could ask something like this? Coach, at the midway point of the season, I know I wasn't your number one. Did I win that job by the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, knowing Mountie, because I know him very well, he's never going to ask that.
He's not going to ask that.
No, but there is player sometimes that could. What's the plan for me next year? So, I mean, I've heard that in the past, and my response has always been the same. The plan for you is to be good and to play a lot. Well, do you think I can be on the first line? Damn right, you can be on the first line, but you gotta have to be good. So, I mean, usually player knowing me and the relationship we built, they know they won't go a certain way about it because they're like, unless it's a guy that comes for the last week of the season, they know how I work and they know how I, structure thing. But I did have some player, mostly when they get cut, to be honest, not in the year-end meeting, but mostly when player get cut to some time at the beginning of the season or would ask, a little dicier question. And if you deal with pro, like Tony, is that there's a lot of contract situation that coaches will not discuss, right? So
I understand. Yeah.
We're locked into a lot of areas where the players are older. They know they wouldn't ask position on and this is the other thing. If a player is a group 2 or he's going to become a free agent, those conversations are not the same in the American League as they are in the NHL, right? There's an agent in the middle. There's a bit of a negotiation. So the coaches is not going to go too far and too deep into some discussion with some player, obviously. With Monty and with Jake, well, they're both signed. They're positional guy that it's pretty clear that they're going to be back with the Habs next year. Now, who's going to play more? It leads to where Monty right now. Things can change, but it would be more of different conversation, but they still be a little bit of a just kind of feeling together.
I have a feeling that it's going to be tough to get to all the names. All right, so I'm going to skip some, and I'm going to try and get to some of the more important players on the team. But let's go with defense. What would you say to Michael Matheson?
Well, I would say thank you because I think he's been just wonderful on the ice and off the ice. He's been banged up, but even through this, I think he's been a trooper. He's been a leader. It showed, and as much as sometimes we want to, don't show too much emotion or we still have to appreciate as coaches when players give their all or invest in what we do. And it's been surprising to me. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I like what I saw last year in Pittsburgh. I thought it was a bit of the Pittsburgh Kool-Aid they drink there with with Letang and all those guys where Sid is in charge. But I gotta be honest, he was great with the Habs. I mean, he's not a number one defenseman for me in a good team, but he's a perfect guy for what the Habs are trying to do right now on and off the ice. So that's pretty much what I would share with him. I don't think I would get into. It all depends the relationship and how the guy is, but I mean, Robbie does work with him. There's still area where you always want to improve, but that would be a very genuine discussion for a guy that's been a great acquisition. And maybe I would use a guy like Madison to get information on some things. Like I would need to know, like during that stretch, do you think that it was could we've done something different, or and you can keep that conversation for later on. Depends how things are, but when you have a guy like that, sometimes you can feel out, a couple of things if you didn't do it already during the season. But
out of the young defensemen, out of Caden Gooley, out of Jordan Harris, out of Justin Barron, out of Arbor Jacki, if I would tell you that, the one out of the four that you really want to talk to because there's a big message you want to put out there, or there's something you want to say to them, who would you choose and why, and what would you say?
Well, their personality would have a lot to do with it, meaning that if I feel one is more inclined to be loosey-loose or, kind of casual or something like that, because they've been banged up and injured. I know Gooley's going to be a very profit. So I would obviously talk to them. But Jacki would be the guy that, I like a lot. I think he's coming from far, and where he is now. But I would sit down and ask him how he sees things, and Stun's done well. And I would like to see how he evaluates his game, because Tony, one of the things that's very important is that's why I let the player talk sometimes, about what they see a lot and stuff. Because when the player has a great assessment of where he is, where he should be, or a great evaluation of himself, this says a lot about his growth, about his adjustment, about a lot of things. So obviously they know Jacki more than I do, but I'd still like to have probably a talk with him and see how, in the time that he was there, just to have his impression. And I've had interviews sometime where Tony, the guy, left the room like, wow, this guy is not knowing that, he doesn't know what's going on. Like he's a good player, but his assessment of his game is like a player. I think I work hard. I think I was good on my details. I'm like, ooh, but you didn't work that hard. Like let's Well, yeah. So. But when you get to the pro, and especially to the NHL, it's a different thing. But when they're a young player, it's always nice to see how did they pursue themselves, what they think they can get better. So those are more interesting conversation that maybe when you get with a Madison or even Edmonston. Let's say Edmonston was in my office. I think he was not very good this year, to be honest. I think he struggled with injury. There's definitely a lot of behind the scene that we don't know about, like the situation, like how healthy was he he missed a lot of hockey, but I don't think you can sugarcoat it. You probably I would ask Edmondson, how do you think it went? And he'd probably be, I wasn't very good. And okay, well, what do we do now? Like, we like
Would you ever be more direct with a player who didn't have a good year, or that you weren't satisfied with their work ethic? So, for example, let's just say you weren't happy with Mike Hoffman and or Jonathan Drouin. Would you really want to tell them at the end of the year that you were disappointed with their work ethic, or would you always have the same approach and just ask them what they thought of their season and not really go too strong on them?
Well, I mean, with Joe, I think Joe tried his best. I think with Joe, he's going to be free agent. What would he do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If I had a young player that, it was a little entitled, let's say, or was a little first round pick it's not good enough, and or you got to get some weight, and he's been out of shape for the last 2 years, and you got to get in shape. I could get a message across, and it's very important to do it because you want no gray zone. And in my life, there's no gray zone. What about this? So the player knew exactly what the expectation was during the season, and they knew at the end of the year what it was for the year after. But you have to remember that there's some veteran and there's contract situation that I'm sure a coach would be like, okay, Hoffman, we're trying. Like, why would I get in conversation with him if we're trying to move him or we're not gonna, But if I knew there's a young guy, Tony, that we'd like, let's say a first round pick, and I don't want to say name because I don't have anybody that I wouldn't know. But if I know, I say not good enough, not in great shape at camp. I need better. I would give him his numbers. I mean, I've given his numbers. I'd say, hey, this is what I'm expecting you to come at training camp next year. I mean, Jake Evans, when we cut him the first year, I got him a tarp to shoot puck. I was like, I like you. You got to play in the NHL, but you don't have a good enough of a shot. I said, you got to shoot 500 pucks a day. Here's a tarp, and he was laughing. Obviously, it was a joke, but he got the point. Not good enough. I was like, because all year I was telling him, you got to be shooting harder, and I was teasing him, and he knew, but I just wanted to make sure at the end of the meeting that he knew. So with Alex Burrows, we got him like a shooting tarp and say, go get those. And he did, actually. You know what he did? He came to camp. We noticed it, and he was so proud of it. He's like, Coach, you see my shot now? He's like, hey, it's coming a little quicker. He's like, a little. So you have to get your message across because you don't want to waste those 3-4 months, Tony. Think about it. If you're shy as a coach, you say, well, I don't know if I want to say it. And then all of a sudden he comes to camp, he's at the same thing. You're losing as a coach, the player's losing. Course. Yeah, it has to be clear message if there's a message to be sent. Now, on your example, I think there's just stuff if they're not part of the future. You know what I mean? You don't want to be hard on a guy. That's
so let's do this. And look, I know your time is limited. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night you're leaving, right? Where are you going? Why don't you tell the audience where you're going?
Yeah, I'm going to the U18 tournament in Switzerland, Basel, because a lot of prospects are there. So I'm going to go see it for TVA Sport. We're going to do the draft with Alex Picard and Elisabeth Rancourt live in June, and I'm going to scout some of the top prospects. They're all there. It's the last showcase. All the general manager that can be there or Ed Scout, and it's all going to be there. So there's the last viewing and a very high-end tournament. So I'm going to scout a lot of players. Already got some tips and some roster the last couple of days. So I'm going to be there for a week.
Good. All right. So let's try and do this as quickly if we can.
Yeah.
Give me out of all the forwards, okay? I'm going to rattle off some names, and I'm going to ask you in the end to choose 5 forwards that you'd want to talk to, and maybe you'll give me 30 seconds on each one, okay? Yeah. So I'm going to rattle off some names, and then once I'm done, you tell me who are the 5 you want to talk to.
Okay.
Nick Suzuki, Kirby Doc, Cole Caulfield, Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, Uri Slavkovsky.
I would definitely talk to Slavkovsky, obviously. And I would really need to go what we talked about, see what did he think he needs to get better. Like, I want to see how he saw the game and stuff that needs to be improved. And, I really would need to have a bit of a perspective of where he is in his head from his play this year, but where his play should be and what's going to bring him success. And
okay, let me give it my best shot. Okay, I walk in, I'm Uri. Let's try and do this.
Hey, Uri, have a seat, kid.
Hi, Coach. Thank you.
So, I wish you would have played a little more this year because it would have been great. But even in the short period you had with us, like, what was the biggest surprise for you? Stepping up to the it's a big step. Like, what was the biggest surprise?
Yeah, Coach, my biggest surprise, I think, was the amount of time and space. There's not a lot of it, Coach. I realized that there was little time and space. I realized it from game one, and my reaction time is going to have to be quicker. There's it's the best league in the world, and I definitely want to play in it. And I think I was getting better with each and every game, but unfortunately, my season was cut short due to injury. And I wish I would have played 82 games, but in the end, I ended up playing 39. But I watched, I learned, I saw how fast the game is, and I'm confident that next year I'm going to know what to expect this time around because I lived it.
Yeah, we're confident too. We know you care. We're going to be with you every step of the way. You're a rarity in the NHL. You're a big body. It takes time. I'm glad you saw that, and we knew that was going to happen a little quicker. To adjust to the NHL, everything will need to be better. But when it does, you could be, a big part of this team. And obviously, we have work to do with you, but you have work to do also. It's a teamwork. And it's gonna take some times, but we're gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and we're gonna find a way to maximize together everything. And the reason why we do that conversation is that kid's got to be a little shaked up a little bit. Like he first overall, he comes in, wasn't a dominant effort. Although I thought he was engaged and he tried, he didn't have the solution all the time to be effective. And I wouldn't want to shake him up more. You know what I mean? Especially missing and stuff. But I would want to make sure that you have a structure and a plan, and that he becomes the best athlete that he comes at camp. And they have all the numbers. They know where he should be. That's why the Habs have, all those laboratory, and they know all the. Yeah. So
Joel, speaking of numbers, what are your thoughts on what Danny Dubé had to say? That he says 240 for Juraj Slafkovsky is way too much. He believes it's too much for hockey players. He believes, to be more explosive, he's going to have to drop at least 20 pounds. Does his weight concern you at all?
I have to look at the body composition because, there's guys that, like, it's too heavy. Some guys, it's just their body. And, I mean, if he's got an 18% body fat, damn right. You know what I mean? If he's got baby fat, I agree. If he's at, like, 10 body fat, he's got, a size on him. Like, what are you going to tell him? Like, let's chunk, there's guys that are just like specimen, and they're just heavy, and they have those big thighs, and they have that big ass, and they're heavy. I mean, we've all saw it. So
yeah.
I don't think it's not fair for me to say he has to come to this weight, because I didn't see his body comp. But I do agree that sometimes some player, we say, hey, buddy, slack off on the weight a little bit and lose a few pounds because you'll be faster. And Tony, I was one of those guys. I was like 210 at the beginning of my career in AHL. I was really thick. I was lifting a lot of weight. I was very strong. To realize that I didn't need to be that heavy. And I played my best hockey at 192, 195 towards my second half of my career. I was still strong, not as strong, but I didn't need to be. And I was a little leaner. And I felt I was more agile. But that was for my body composition and me. I mean, I wasn't chunky by any means at 210, but it was way too thick. He's a big boy. He's a lot bigger than I am. And me, if I look at weight, my muscles start to, I would do pipes for 2 days and they would buckle up. So I got to back off from that. And I don't know him, so I cannot say, but heavy is not necessarily stronger. This is the one thing. I played with some guys that were like 185 and they were like strong on the puck. I played with some guys that were like 210 and they weren't that strong on the puck. It would be another conversation, but it wouldn't be fair for me to say.
Would you want to speak to veterans like Jonathan Drouin and or Brendan Gallagher? Drouin, whose contract is up at the end of the year, and in all likelihood, it doesn't look like he'll be back. Gallagher, who's got 4 more years on a deal that everyone is saying that unfortunately it's way too much money, and the contract is an albatross. Would you like to speak to either of them?
Yeah,
if you had the choice,
I would like to speak to all of them because I think so. But I know what you mean. Like, is there one that you would say? I mean, to everybody that's coming back, I would talk to Gally because Joe, I talked to him, but I don't think he's coming back.
I hear you.
But Gally, obviously, I would really need to have where he is in his head. I think this is some of the most important thing. As much as we're disappointed, Tony may be into Gally. He's been a trooper. The guy's style of play is demanding, and he has one dimension, and he gets banged up. So I would need to know, like, where's his frame of mind? And I'm sure he's aware. So I'll do anything I can, coach, this summer. And at the end of the day, he signed for 4 years. Like I said, what are you gonna do? And it's not like I think Galley's just taking it easy and he's not, taking care of his body. Or, I mean, it wouldn't be something like that. I wouldn't think so. You kind of have to just to see where he's at. If he's really down, let's say Tony comes in and say, "Hey, you know what, coach? And I have had that. Like, hey, how are you?" And some guys, you could go to a different way. One guy say, "You know what? I know I've been hurt, but I'll be back. I know what I need to do. It's been a string of bad luck, but I'm positive." Things like that. And there's other guys coming, "Coach, what should I do?" So same situation too.
Yeah.
So it would be more for me to see where it is in his mind.
Would you ever tell a player like that where you see him next year if you actually don't see him in a top line? Like, would you ever say this is what's realistic, or you would never do that because no?
Because I don't know what's going to happen in 3-4 months, and I never go negative or go on setting a player where or try to let's say implant it to his brain in May or in April that, oh well, by the way, next year you're gonna have a bit of a lesser part. It's just bring him a negative to a conversation that doesn't need to be. If I need to spark a guy, I put a dynamite, up where, then I'll do it in some way. If, like I said, a young guy or a situation or attitude problem or something like that. But again, that should be done during the year,
Mm-hmm.
When I go see minor hockey and I see player acting a certain way game 1, I go, okay. When I see it game 30, I'm like, shame on the coach. Like, it shouldn't be happening game 30th. Like, things should be tight. So, but I still need to see where they're all in their frame of mind, and that's why I said, Tony, it's good to take to let him talk, to hear him out, to maybe say a few words, see how he reacts, and then a month and a half later.
Probably a stupid question because I've never been through it, obviously, but I'll ask it anyway. Would it ever happen? Would there ever be a situation where you would bring in 2 at a time? Like, would that ever make sense? Like, for example, would you consider bringing Caulfield and Suzuki in together because you want them to know that you see them together and they're a big part of your team and they're gonna run your offense for the next 6, 7, 8 years? Would that ever be possible?
I think it happened in the season. It could happen in the season, and in times. And I'm not saying I've never done it. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's not a dumb question. It could be 3-4 guys. It could be the leadership. If you have a point you want to come across, let's say, and I'm not saying it's that, but it could be like you said with Gooley and you know what, guys, this year's, as much as everybody thinks we're great, not good enough. I'm going to crank it up next year. If you want to say a message that you're going to be in 3 months and you want them to know that, just so you're not surprised, next September, we're going to raise the stake a little bit. So as much as we like you, you're great, you're awesome, we love you, you're the best. Just know that next year when you see me a little more on some of the points that I think are important, we're not going to be surprised. I've not done it that way, but I could be done if you have a message to prepare them for something, and like you said, to say, hey, but it's their moment to be by themselves with the coach. But I don't think it's something that, I'm sure if you ask around, an NHL coach or another coach would tell you, I've done that 1 year, I remember, because of particular situation. It has to be very particular.
Yeah. So when you said that players may ask you, where you think I can be better, or what do you think I need to work on? Would it happen that if you thought maybe a player didn't quite connect with you, that maybe you would ask the player what you can do in terms of your coaching or in terms of
100%.
Your communicating, so that you guys can probably hit it off better next year, type of thing? Or what you think do you think I did anything wrong? Would you have liked me to handle you a different way? Does that happen?
Tony, 100% that could happen. I'd like the coach, I would do it before the end meeting because I'd like to make sure that he performs before. So I'd like to have that talk in November, if you ask me. But you're right. It could be something that could be say, hey, I tried a few things with you, didn't seem to get you going as much as you could. Like, help me out here because we like you. Or it could be a discussion that you could have 100%. And I would definitely have it if I feel. But I would like to believe, Tony, that it's not a year meeting. I'd like to believe that I would do it way before that. I mean, I tried stuff with player and I'm like, ooh, that doesn't work with him. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's try something else. And at one point I'll bring in him and say, hey, dude, what do we do here? Like, I want you to play better and help me out, help you. And, you know, it happened with some guys where like, okay, well, squeeze me in the neck. So there's a couple of guys that instead of saying something, then I would just squeeze in the neck and I get the point. I think that's where, as a coach, you build your relationship with your player. On the year-end meeting, it's more of a. But where you said something was important, Tony. And I think it was bang on. Is to say when a player asks you where I think I should improve, especially when you talk with young guys and American League guys or guys that are young. If a skating is deficient, like you're really gonna press that skating, like power skating, and I think teams now most of them have people in charge of development.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they are involved, especially in American League, but even in NHL. But I always tell people, and Alex Burrows was great in it. It's like, invest in your career, man. Invest in your career. It's the time. Hire a skill coach. Hire a skating coach. Maximize your time that you're going to be training to have the best people helping you. And it's an investment. And Alex Burrows was one of.
Sure. If you end up carving a 12 or 13 year career, you're going to make at least $1 million a year. It's worth the investment.
Okay, think about it, Tony. Any businessman will tell you, I need to reinject X amount of money or a percentage of my revenue or profit, or they all have a different way. But everybody believes into, okay, I got to get 5% back into technology. I got to get like whatever. But it's the same thing in sports. You know?
Yes, you're right.
I heard some player that says, I got to invest $100,000 on my body. And I won't mention the name because I don't want to, but he told me I have to find a way to invest $100,000 in my body every year. Well, that's a lot of money. But think about, and he had a great career. And what did he have? The best massage. He had the best food. He had the best. And at the end, he was right. You know,
it's well documented that Nathan McKinnon invests an awful lot of time and money into strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists, just experts that are following up on him all the time. I mean, he's very selective of what food goes into his body and, what the quality of the food too. He's got people helping him. So Nathan McKinnon's one of those players who invests a lot. Joel, this has been a lot of fun. We went overtime. I'm sorry. I tend to talk a lot. Once again, I know you're busy. I do appreciate your time very much. Do me a favor. You're going to scout these kids in Switzerland. You're doing it for TVA Sport. You're going to be there at the draft that's going to take place in Nashville later on in June. Between now and the draft, will you join us to talk to us about some of these kids that you're going to scout?
100%. Give me a few weeks after, we'll do it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Friend.
Safe travels tomorrow. Very much appreciate your time. Have a great night.
Thanks.
There you have it. Joel Bouchard, former NHLer, former coach with the Laval Rocket, the San Diego Gulls recently, and, of course, Blainville, the Armada of Blainville-Boisbriand. That was a lot of fun. Hey, speaking of fun, the NHL playoffs are here. Of course, tonight was night number 1. Carolina 2-1 winners over the Islanders, take a 1-0 lead. Boston 3-1, they beat Florida, 1-0 lead. 19 minutes left in period number 2. Minnesota is up 1-0 in Dallas. And the Edmonton Oilers, with 8 minutes to go in period number 1, lead the Los Angeles Kings by a score of 1-0. On that note, we have a playoff bracket pool. All right, playoff bracket pool. This is what it looks like. It's brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, where you can feel the energy, all right? Join our NHL playoff bracket pool. We've extended it, even though tonight is the first night, okay? We've extended the deadline a little bit. Let me bring up Sammy and Agnello here, if I can, for a second. Let me bring them on. Sammy and Agnello, are you there? There they are.
What's up, Tony?
What are we going to give in terms of a deadline?
It's tomorrow night, 5 o'clock.
Tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern?
Yep, 5 p.m.
All right, okay. So this is what the winner is going to win. And now all you got to do is just choose which team will win, okay, all the way up until your Stanley Cup winner. And then they might ask you like a bonus question, the amount of total goals that'll be scored in the final or whatever, okay? Whoever wins first place And if there's somewhat of a two-way tie or a three-way tie in yellow, what we'll do is, anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But in the end, there's going to be a winner. If it's a two-way tie, it's a two-way tie. But the winner or winners will get some sick swag, and we're going to put them up on the video just the way we put Joel Bouchard up, and they're going to be able to co-host the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro with myself at a date to be determined. We're going to go on for about 30 minutes. Does that sound good?
Yep. Sounds like $1 million. Love it.
Unfortunately, it's not $1 million though, but we can't afford the $1 million. But maybe, you know what? And then, I would love for one day for us to be able to afford it, and the winner would get $1 million. But in the meantime, no, the winner's going to get sick swag and a chance to co-host at a date to be determined, a date that we will figure out together. All right. Okay. All right. On that note, we have our guy. Yes, we do.
Here. He's waiting.
All right. Sick sports cards. That's
Sick sports cards. Presented by Sports La Tornade.
Oh, yeah. Sick Sports Cards is presented by Sport La Tornade, sports cards, collectibles, and more. Visit the store at 1 Avenue de la Fabrique in Vaudreuil-Dorion. What's going on, Chris?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you for asking. What's new at the store?
Well, what's new at the store right now is we've been working a lot on our website. So we encourage a lot of people to visit our website now that we have more things on there at www.sportlatornade.com. And we now have a feature. You can enter the code SICK for 10% off what your purchase is on our website.
Okay.
So we do have a Sick Podcast feature in there.
Okay, good.
We've also added in our store a memorabilia section where we're going to be selling more and more signed pucks, signed jerseys, signed hats, signed photos, stuff like that. So I attended in the last 3 weeks. I've attended a lot of private signings, public signings with Montreal Canadiens players. So now you can get autograph stuff. I was with Jordan Harris 3 weeks ago, and then we did Jack Eye, and just this past weekend Pizzetta. And we're going to have in store coming up soon. I have confirmed that we will be having Caden Gooley at the store, so we will make an event of it. The date for that is going to be determined, but we will bring you Caden Gooley to Sport La Tornade.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. All right. The website that you talked about putting together, will you be able to order from the website? So for those who are watching, if they want to order, can they order from the website, or will there be a link to one of your web stores?
You can order right on our website. We're going to start putting up the memorabilia stuff on our website this week. Right now, it's all our sealed boxes of hockey cards and every other sport. But upon the checkout, if you use the code SICK, you'll get your 10% rebate.
Fantastic. Hobby news. Do you have any?
So, just before I forgot to mention that this is the Upper Deck Series 2, 22-23. It came out last week.
Alexander the Great.
So, yeah, Alexander the Great, yeah.
Speaking of which, I have a beauty. Can I show you something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Want to see my PJs? Hold on a second. That, huh?
They're falling off now. So while he's gone, we're to talk about this Series 2 here. The Series 2 is the Slavkovsky, Gooley, Jack-Eye Young Guns in this year's crop.
All right. I have a piece here in my home that I'd love to get autographed at one point. I want to show it to you. It's a canvas painting.
Yeah. Very nice. That's beautiful.
It's nice, eh?
Yeah, it is. Very nice.
Yeah, I really, really like it a lot. I really like it a lot.
Is that like a local painter, or someone? How did you get that?
So there's a gentleman. I'm trying to think of where I got this one exactly. Damn, I'm probably I got it locally here in Montreal. I just don't remember where I got it right now. I apologize. But anyway, I got my hands on this, and I don't remember how I got it, but I got it. Yep. And I have it here, and I said, you know what? I have to have this autographed at one point, and especially since it looks like he's going to break Gretzky's record of goals, that would be pretty cool. And I have something else, by the way, which I don't have. You know, it's in another room, so I don't want to leave the show again. But in Alex Ovechkin's second year, there was I think he was using CCM vector skates, and there was a press conference with CCM and all the members of the media that attended the conference. And by the way, there weren't that many, so I'm very happy that I went. Got a skate that Alexander Ovechkin would be using in his second year in the National Hockey League, and the skate was autographed. And
very nice.
And I got it with a certificate of authenticity, and the certificate actually ripped when I went. Well, I still have the piece that's cut off, but when I went to go look at it the other day, and like, I think what happened was when I moved the skate or the bag from one area to another, the skate actually probably went on top of the certificate and it kind of crumpled it a little bit. So now that certificate's a little bit ripped. If I ever wanted to sell that skate, and I don't think I will, but you know what? Never say never in life. Am I in a bad spot because that certificate was ripped? No.
People are going to still take the certificate as long as it's not in a million pieces and it's legible. Like you'll still, obviously the big thing is you want to keep it until he breaks the record. You don't want to sell it now.
No, but, you're right about that. I was thinking of calling CCM to see if they could actually send me another certificate.
They might.
They might. Yeah.
And then the big argument is he's going to break the record, but will McDavid beat his record one day?
Yeah, you're right about that. The only problem is the person who signed their certificate used to work at CCM back then, doesn't work for them now. So
that could be a problem.
Does that take away from the authenticity? No, it doesn't. All right. Okay.
No.
Anyway,
yeah. So the hobby news. So there's a lot of shows this time of year. So what's coming up is I'm leaving on Thursday. I'm going to the Toronto show once again. That's the big show. Montreal show coming up May 11, 12. For anyone that's in the Montreal area, May 11th, 12 at Stade IGA. We'll be there with our booth. Also, there was a big show called the Mint Collective about 2 weeks ago in Vegas. And there was like a bombshell that was dropped at the show. All the big players were there and all the big graders. Everyone's heard of Beckett. So if you have hockey cards, everyone knows about Beckett. They do the grading of the cards and all this and that. Now, Beckett has fallen in the last couple of years, a couple spots in the grading world to PSA and a couple other companies. So they're trying to regain some ground. And they decided to make an announcement at the Mint Collective in Vegas that they were going to change their grading scale. That made a huge backlash all over the internet. They got a lot of negative feedback, to the point that 24 hours after the announcement, they had to take back their announcement. They had to apologize and now have really stepped back and analyzed and after apologizing, they're now sending out surveys to big collectors and everyone in the hobby to see what they think and see. They want feedback now because they kind of put themselves in a bad spot. And so this was big news for a lot of hobby people in the last 2 weeks. So right now I want to like Beckett is a bit of a mess right now. So
really,
yeah, well, it is, but I have a feeling they're going to come out of this with all the attention they were getting, even if it was negative. I feel like in the long run, I have a feeling they're going to win. They're going to win some people, and they're going to make some good changes because,
yeah,
they did ask for feedback. They're getting a lot of feedback, and hopefully they make the right decisions going forward. But that would be my biggest news for the hobby in the last month or so.
Yeah. So the NHL playoffs are going on right now. All right. In terms of those who want to buy, okay. In terms of those who want to buy, if someone's hot in these playoffs, okay, there's a player that has one of those John Drews type of playoffs or Chris Kontos type of playoffs. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm watching them go, and I want to jump on the bandwagon and buy that player's card. Will the market like establish itself right away? Will what I'm trying to say is, will the pricing adjust if you see a player that's hot?
The pricing will adjust. So one of the biggest things in all of sports hobby is Stanley Cups and accomplishments, trophies, records, things like this. So if you see something that's about to happen, it's a lot. I tell to everyone, it's a lot like the stock market. You got to get it before everyone else gets it, and you got to jump on it while it's unknown or what you think it's going to do. So to wrap up the season, at the end of the year, now I think, what was it, Tuesday? When was the last day of the regular season? It was determined who was last place, who was 32nd, who was 31st in the league. And I saw the trend right away in the last 3 days. People are picking up Zegras. People are picking up Drysdale. People are picking up McTavish. These guys play for Anaheim because Anaheim finished last, and they see Anaheim maybe potentially getting Bedard, and they want to jump on the bandwagon now.
That's pretty smart, actually. It's pretty smart.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Lucas Reichel, Chicago, another one. People are coming in and saying, I believe, Chicago's going to have that pick. They're going to jump up to number 1. I see Bedard playing with Lucas Reichel next year. That's where I'm headed. Then you go into the playoffs. So the playoffs is a whole other game. So you take what the players done all season, and I put a few names here just to ask what you think about this. A player like Jack Hughes. His play this year, he went up. All his cards actually went up. He had a great season.
My neighbor bought his rookie card, a PSA 10. He got it for $350. And I'm thinking to myself,
that's a good deal. $350 for Jack Hughes is a good deal.
Yeah, I should have jumped on that bandwagon. I should have.
So this is, but wait, let me explain. Jack Hughes had a great year. So people were buying them at about $425. I even saw up to $450 about a month ago because, the points were there. Now, if I say, what do you think he's going to do in the playoffs? If you want a personal opinion, I think the Rangers will beat the Devils in the first round. And I think you're going to get a Jack Hughes within a month after that back at $350.
Okay, I got it.
So if you know what I mean, you can definitely I would keep track of what Jack Hughes is doing, because this summer, after I don't wish this upon him, but if he loses in the first round to the Rangers, his card will drop this summer and you'll get it at $350, no problem. If you want another card that's going to be, it went up a little bit, but it's always been on the low end of the spectrum. not very expensive. Again, it's a personal opinion, but I took a smaller risk, but I bought a few Stuart Skinners. I think that Edmonton.
If they go to the final, you obviously have a 50% chance of winning the cup.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't find the West to be that strong. So I think that Edmonton, if Stuart Skinner plays above average, he doesn't have to be amazing. He just has to be above average. That team can take him far.
Yeah.
So Stuart Skinner, I think, is one of those guys that some guys might want to jump on board. And then you have some older guys. Let's go with Jack Eichel, who people consider to be a superstar or woulda, coulda. He's on the. Some people think he's a superstar. Some people, he's had a lot of injuries in his career, but this is his first kick at the can at the playoffs. So his card was kind of stagnant for a long time just because he wasn't doing much. But now he's got new life in Vegas, and who knows what can be done in Vegas. It depends if you believe or not. I have a prediction that Winnipeg will beat Vegas in the first round, but so I wouldn't go for Jack Eichel. But if you think that Jack Eichel and Vegas could go at least to the Western Conference Final, then I think Jack Eichel is a good pickup for you. It's like playing the stock market.
I hear you. Okay, so why don't we do this? Let's take 4 questions for Chris. 4 questions for Chris. All right. Question number 1, Sammy, bring it up. What's the good Slafkovsky card in this batch from Chris Bergeron?
Okay, so the box that I showed you here, you can pick these up. They're just they just came out this week. Series 2, 22-23. You have the Juraj Slafkovsky Young Guns. That's probably your most popular pickup right now. And if you don't happen to get him out of a pack, you can get Gooley or Jackeye also with the there's 5 Canadians in this set. You also have Schuneman and Baddock.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay. Question number 2. Chris, do the old hockey cards, complete collections from retailers like Esso Oil, Lipton Soup, or Salada Tea have any value whatsoever?
So these are a little bit, these sets you see less and less of. I have people stop by and show me their sets, Esso, stuff like that. I want to say that they've probably been worth what they were worth back then. They're worth now. They're not climbing. They're not going up at all. But it's like a Tim Hortons set. It's just it has a value. They made nice cards, so it's something that you might want to keep. It's definitely a lot. It's not junk. It's not garbage.
Yeah.
But I don't see you doubling your money anytime soon on that kind of thing.
I hear you. All right. Okay. Question number 3. Let's go for it. This one coming in from Bobby. How much is Shane Wright's rookie card worth now?
Okay. So same thing with the Shane Wright is in that same set as I showed Slafkovsky.
Yeah.
I remember on the day one it came out, some people were selling them for about $100. And I believe now that's dropped between 60 and 80. So
right,
there's always the day, the hype of the day it comes out.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of drops, and people with Shane Wright are really, they're really, really uncertain. Like I have tons of people that believe, and I have tons of people that think it's a bust, and it's very uncertain with that.
Yeah. Well, the value of the card is actually consistent with his play right now, a drop in production.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And the last one. Matrix is real. How much was the most expensive card you ever saw?
I go every year to the shows in Toronto where I see in front of me at booths $1 million card. You can see there was one last year. It was a very rare. It was the Gretzky rookie, but it was like I think it was a PSA 9 or there's two 10s that exist in the world, but it was there for $1 million. There's also now that like this week there was a Justin Herbert 1 of 1 pulled from his rookie year, but it just got pulled now. Herbert's 2020, I believe, and that 1 of 1 card was somewhere around the 600,000. So yeah, we're looking at some big coin.
Look, I very much believe in investing in cards. If I didn't, I mean, we wouldn't have you on the program because it is an investment, and there are some that are investments that are better than others. To get a card early on in a player's career and then watch that player go on to a Hall of Fame career and you make a lot of money on the card, I mean, that's cool. But, I mean, why would anyone want to buy $1 million card, man? If you have $1 million, buy yourself a revenue property.
Yeah, that's how people see it. But there's big collectors that just their $1 million that they have, if they can put it in a card and put the card away and hope for it to grow, or you know what, even if they only get $1 million out of it at the end of it, it's a hobby. But first, it depends. Everyone sees it differently. Some people are just addicted to it. Some people use it for pleasure. Like I love to do it just for fun. I don't look necessarily at the value, but I'm not buying $1 million card either. I do buy some expensive cards if I see a potential or someone selling low. I'll do it, no problem. But the $1 million cards, you have to. There's a very small niche. I say this to people that have $10,000 and more cards. Someone always, says, "Oh, but this guy has a $20,000 card." Well, okay, but
yeah,
how many buyers do you have? So I can sell $5 cards and I can sell $100 cards all day, every day. But if you have a $10,000 card, you have a $20,000 card, it looks nice in your showcase, but how many buyers do you legitimately have to buy that card? So it's a different business model. That's all it is.
Chris, thanks so much for your time. Once again, letting everyone know that Sport La Tornade is, of course, at 1 Avenue de la Fabrique in Vaudreuil-Dorion. And, of course, you've been working on your website, and a sick code gets you 10% off. Pretty cool. Have fun later on this week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, a shout out to Playground. Over 600 machines, poker tournaments, playground, casino games, daily promotions, and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. If you enjoyed the podcast earlier tonight with Joel Bouchard, former coach of the Blainville Boisbriand Armada, and former coach of the Laval Rocket, and former coach of the San Diego Gulls, who did a little bit of role-playing. He's the coach. I'm the Montreal Canadiens player. And what we discussed at the exit interviews, of course, like it, share it with your friends, and give us a 5-star review. If you're listening on Google, Apple, or Spotify, we very much appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, and by the way, it's absolutely free, do so now. All right, okay. Before I break away and I say goodnight, I want to show you a video that was taken earlier today. As a matter of fact, off of my smartphone. This is the video I took. I think it's going to put a smile on your face.
Is that everybody? Yeah! Wow. Thank you, guys.
This is my name. This is my name. This is my name.
Who wrote the merci? Did everybody write that? Oh. Wow, thank you, guys. Who drew the person? Is that Wyatt? Good job. What's at the end? Is that a butterfly? What is it? Oh, a heart. Wow, thank you guys. Can we look at your drawings too?
This is mine.
Where are your drawings?
The one with the F first is mine.
All right, there you have it. Of course, you recognize the face by now. That's Montreal Canadiens defenseman Michael Matheson. That was earlier today. I was invited actually to St. Gabriel's Elementary School in Point St. Charles earlier today at around 10 a.m. Mike Matheson was there. Mike Matheson is an ambassador for an organization, a foundation called Champions for Life, which empowers children, young kids to actually be active, play different sports, learn different movements, stay active so that they can be champions for life. And David Arsenault is the founder of the foundation, and he's a personal friend of Mike Matheson's. And he asked Mike if Mike would go down to a school and talk with the kids. As a matter of fact, read them, a paragraph from a book, spend time with them, and then, meet up with all the kids in the gymnasium and, answer some questions from the kids, take pictures, sign autographs, all that stuff. And Mike, of course, accepted. And he told Dave, you know what, I'll do it at the end of the season. And, of course, their season came to an end on Thursday night. The Canadian season did. So what does Mike Matheson do on the Monday? He goes down to St. Gabriel's Elementary School in Point St. Charles, and he gives about 2 hours of his time. And Mike Cohen works for the English Montreal School Board. Mike Cohen reached out to me, and he asked me if I would like to MC the event. I gladly accepted to spend time with Mike and with the kids earlier today. And so I was with Mike every step of the way there for the entire 2 hours. And I got to tell you, I've liked Mike Matheson for a long time. It's a long time. I was asking to get him on the Montreal Canadiens. I was over the moon happy when they acquired him in that deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he's a star defenseman. He's a beauty on the ice, and he's a real gem off the ice. And once again, what a move by Kent Hughes to go out and acquire Michael Matheson and bring him home. You should have seen him today with the kids. And you saw there by the video, I mean, just, what it meant to the kids to be with Mike Matheson. But he's in his element. He's in his element with those kids, let me tell you. And, it's funny because I said to Mike, I said, Mike, it's my second time interviewing you. And I said, you remember the first time? And he looked at me and he was nodding his head. The first time was about 12 years ago, give or take 12 years ago. And he was a Sec 3 or a Sec 4 student at John Rennie High School in Point Claire. He was part of their Sport Etudes program. And there was a job fair that was going on and stuff. And the radio station had me there. And I interviewed Mike Matheson. And he was chosen by, the head of the Sport Etudes program or the principal, and said, you're really going to want to talk to this kid. This kid's going to play in the NHL one day. And man, were they right. He's playing in the National Hockey League. So it's my second time interviewing Mike. And, when I saw him, and I haven't seen him since he arrived, and I just wanted, Tony, and he said, I know who you are, Tony. I listened to your show growing up, and I was a Canadiens fan growing up, and I listened to your show growing up, and that was kind of cool. It made me feel good. And then that's it. And then on the way out, I walked out before him, but I couldn't leave because his truck was in front of my truck blocking the way. So when he came out, I said, stay-at-home defenseman here. What are you doing? You're protecting the net. And I said, all right, one quick picture before we go. So, I got my picture with Mike Matheson too. So there you have it. There's me and Mike Matheson. Two beauties, Mike Matheson, once again, classy guy. It was a great day. I know the kids really enjoyed it. And I spoke to Mike and I said, Mike, I'd like to get you on the podcast. And he said, Tony, I'd love to join you. So it's in the works, and expect Mike Matheson to join us over the next couple of weeks here if all goes well. All right. He's headed out to Buffalo later on in the week. His wife is from there. He'll spend some time in Buffalo, but I think whether it's before he leaves or while he's going to be there, he's going to join us one night. And I know you're going to be able to appreciate it. He's absolutely fantastic. All right. Okay. Once again, a reminder, join our NHL playoff bracket. Agnello and Sammy, if you can, in the chat right now on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live, if you could put the link where everyone can sign up for the playoff bracket, which is absolutely free. You're going to get a link to officepools.com. It's going to be an invite. Once you're going to click on the link, it's going to ask you for your username, and you'll write whatever username you want. And then it's going to bring up a series of pools. Folks, it's very easy. It's the one that's free to enter, and it's the one that's titled NHL Playoff Bracket. So just fill it out. It'll probably take you 20 seconds to do the entire pool of just predictions of who's going to win round 1, round 2, round 3, and who will win the Stanley Cup. And once again, the winner will walk away with some sick swag and will co-host the Sick Podcast with myself for about 30 minutes at a date to be determined. That's it for me for tonight. Happy playoffs, everyone, even though the Montreal Canadiens aren't there, but at least the Laval Rocket are there. They are. They're going to play in the next couple of days here. So at least we got that to enjoy. I'll probably see you at some point here in Laval. Have a good night. Tomorrow night, I'll be back. Same time, same place. Eric Engels is our regular collaborator on Monday, but tonight he made way for Joel Bouchard, who could have only made it tonight because he's on a plane for Switzerland tomorrow. Eric Engels of Sportsnet and sportsnet.ca will join us tomorrow night. Have a great night, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature.